6 astronauts discover advanced technology that can stop human extinction when they refuse to leave despite threats of alien infection. A parasite starts turning them against each other. An unconscious woman awakens to an alarm warning about abnormal activity in the area. With no memory of what happened, she wonders why there's blood on her hands and confusingly looks around the room. Despite her aching body, she forces herself up while the speakers announce a system failure. She grabs a flashlight and cautiously heads into the hallway where there's blood everywhere. As she hears alerts about a security breach, Rhea wearily traces a gruesome trail and is shocked to find a lifeless man. Sensing danger, she pulls the knife from his chest to use as a weapon. She then explores the nearby control room and discovers another fallen stranger. Following the announcements, she flips a switch to activate the standby power. While the system reboots, she steps out of the building and stumbles upon a body bag. Inside it is an astronaut with a horribly disfigured face, making it impossible to identify them. The woman inspects the structure behind her and sees ashes falling from the sky. Not knowing where she is, Rhea explores the outdoors and comes across a shadowy figure, but when it mirrors her every movement and vanishes into thin air, her confusion grows. Before she can venture further, she's already standing dangerously on a cliff's edge. As she looks up, she witnesses the eerily beautiful sky pulsating and rippling. From the center, she spots a bright light move above, but then finds herself gasping for air, and so Rhea hastily returns to the building and makes it inside. Using what little strength she has to shut the door and take a deep breath while the system announces dangerously low oxygen levels. She clumsily fumbles along the dim hall, disoriented from lacking air. She abruptly recalls someone slamming her head against the wall and writhing in agony on the floor. When she regains her footing, she grabs a first aid kit and applies a medicated patch on her neck, hoping it'll help with her fever and pain. Feeling safe, she takes the time to inspect her reflection in the bathroom. As she showers to wash the blood off her bruised body, she wonders who she is. Determined to find answers, she peeks into the adjacent space and briefly remembers Clark laughing in another room. It takes a while before memories of a smiling Kevin resurface. Rhea searches the man's diary for clues and discovers notes about oxygen saturation and cabin pressure. Eventually she finds a candid photo of her between the pages, forcing her to reminisce on a time she tended to plants. When an unexpected noise startles her, she returns to the hallway and sees someone by the door, so she quietly slips behind it and draws her knife. She pounces on the stranger as he enters and throws him to the ground. Quickly she pins him down and smashes his helmet, demanding to know who he is. When he calls her by name, she immediately pulls away, baffled that he seems to recognize her. The man realizes Rhea is disoriented, so he reveals his face to help jog her memory. He introduces himself as Brian and shows his identifying badge. He reassures the bewildered woman they both belong to the 7F mission and that he monitors their space station's orbit while sharing a meal with their group. She recalls Davis serving them boiled beans in honor of Brian from the orbital. However, she still distrusts him and tightly grips the knife, so he nervously reminds her about the distress signal she sent after Clark turned on them. Rhea is shaken that she has no memory of it and explains that when she woke up everyone was already gone. However, she has fleeting images of the events and remembers seeing a woman. The man assumes she's referring to Clark, who's gone rogue, and leaves her alone to explore the area. While waiting, she looks out the window and notices a storm brewing while thick clouds cover the landscape. Brian returns shortly with a metal suitcase and opens it to press a button, activating the mobile diagnostic and surgery bot. While it scans her body for medical issues, he explains that half a dozen vessels spread across the galaxy in search of a habitable place for humans. However, their last 6 expeditions have already failed and they're currently on the 7th mission aboard Vessel F. As he mentions they're on planet Koi 442 or Ash, the surgical bot suddenly pierces the gash on Rhea's temple, scaring her. She instantly reaches out to her companion, who holds her hand and tells her to stay calm to avoid panicking. She closes her eyes while the machine stitches her wound. Meanwhile, Brian explains that besides staying in orbit in the first year of arriving on a new planet, it's his job to establish communications with their base and watch out for problems. Once the medbot finishes, he reveals that Rhea has some minor swelling in her brain causing her fever and memory loss. The man assures her that any skills she's learned are still intact, but she worries more about uncovering her identity and what happened to their mission the next day. As she hauls their fallen team team outdoors. Brian says that they're running out of oxygen and have to leave Ash when the planet aligns with the orbital in 12 hours. As she listens to his plan, she glances at Audi's remains and jolts at the memory of his final moments back at the space station. She hesitantly picks up the scissors from a pool of blood and recalls stabbing Audi with them. Perturbed, she heads to the supply room and applies a fresh patch on her neck before breaking down in tears, wondering if she's responsible for their crew's demise as a massive sandstorm engulfs their building and surroundings. The survivors can only watch from indoors. Rhea mentions that she started to remember things, so he presses her details. However, when she keeps silent, Brian thinks it's about her relationship with Kevin. The woman misleads him by confirming his suspicions, afraid to share her recent recollection. Just then the speakers alert them of a hull breach leading to critical oxygen levels. Hurriedly they get into their gear and investigate the structure for holes until Rhea spots the broken vent. Equipped with repair tools, she ventures into the air ducts alone, eventually removing her helmet so she can squeeze into a tight space. She soon finds an open flap, but as she seals it shut, a horrifying image of Clark's distorted face flashes in her mind. Later Brian discusses his theory that a pathogen must have infected their female crewmate, triggering a psychotic break that caused her to turn on them. Rhea begs him to stay longer so they can uncover what really happened, but the man insists on leaving in 5 hours or else they'll perish from oxygen deprivation. She visits Kevin's room that evening and reads his journal, recalling the moment their crew arrived on planet Ash, eager to start a new beginning. She then picks up his jacket and breathes in his scent, remembering the time she embraced him as he played music, unaware that she's drifted to sleep. Rhea dreams of meeting her lover in an oasis while a drone orbits around them. The man dreadfully prompts her to look down into the well, but as she does, a screeching sound deafens her. Within moments she finds herself back in the space station, stabbing Kevin with a knife in the chest before finally awakening to the nightmare. As soon as she wakes up, she retrieves the drone in her dream and hooks it to the MDS bot, using its screen to play a video. In the recording, their crew travels on foot to a location that Brian led them to, hoping to find the nearest source of the planet's strange emissions. When they encounter a manufactured well, the team realizes that Ash's entire atmosphere is created by hundreds of similar structures. Davis throws an object into the abyss to find out its depth, when out of nowhere it explodes and melts his face, instantly ending his life as toxic gases and electrical currents burst from the well along with many others. Rhea can only watch the video in horror. When Brian interrupts, she confronts him for hiding the fact that he knew what happened to their crew and that other beings were terraforming the planet. The man says he only knew about their mission, but that the whole station went dark afterward. She accuses him of lying to manipulate her, though he explains that he simply wants them to get to the orbital during the alignment since they don't have much time to escape. Brian urges her to delay her investigation until they're both safe, but she finally reveals her reason for wanting to stay. Rhea believes that she took the lives of their crew, though she doesn't understand why she did it. Shocked by the revelation, he fearfully steps away while she begs him to postpone their departure so she can uncover why she committed such acts. She briefly mentions that when her transdermal patch loses its effects, she begins to remember the events that transpired. He reminds Rhea that their mission is more important than knowing the truth, adding that they can use the alien technology they found in Ash to change other planets' atmospheres and make them livable for humans. Defeated, she walks away from their argument without a word. Later, Brian visits the woman in her room and informs her they have about 3 hours before the lander takes off for the orbital. At first she thinks nothing of their interaction, but when he applies a new skin patch on her neck, she begins suspecting his true intentions. As soon as he leaves, her vision starts spinning, prompting her to remove the medicated patch. Almost instantly she recalls defending herself against Daddy, who seemed intent on ending her life after stabbing him several times with a pair of scissors. He finally stopped attacking her. She immediately searches for her companion following the violent flashback and stumbles upon Clark. Rhea manages to avoid her creepy gaze and quietly traverses the air vents, where she finds Brian already lifeless. However, the woman eventually discovers her hiding place and pursues her relentlessly, cornering her in the shower. As Clark smashes her head against the bathroom wall, she sees a mental image of her infected crewmate sneering at her mockingly. Rhea thinks quickly and plugs a hose into her helmet, filling it with water. She then subdues her enemy with all her strength until she passes away from drowning. In the living room, she inspects her body tea with the medbot and is shocked that she doesn't have signs of infection. Just then the speakers alert her about the orbital lineup, so she heads out to the lander determined to leave planet Ash alone. However, when she encounters remnants of foreign organic matter on the ship, she figures that Brian has been in contact with the parasites, so she returns to their space station and applies 2 skin patches, hoping to get more flashbacks. Once they lose their effects while waiting, Rhea drags the remains of their orbital monitor and analyzes it with the MDS robot. Based on its findings, the man met his demise 51 hours ago, which she comes to realize is impossible since they've been interacting this whole time. In the midst of her confusion, the alarm suddenly warns her about the presence of an unusual life form. The terrified woman equips herself with a weapon and carefully walks through the halls. At a distance, she sees a strange entity taking Brian's shape. As it patiently walks towards her, she asks what it is, but it doesn't respond and continues approaching her. It dawns on Rhea that the unknown being made her believe that Clark was infected and used her to get rid of the woman. When she sees a strange creature in her mind, she convulses, briefly forcing her to let go of her weapon. Everything is starting to make sense now. The thing standing before her is the infection itself. The parasite says it's a part of her and inserts his fingers into her wound, so she'll finally understand. Weeks ago, following the incident leading to Davis's untimely demise, the orbital lost contact with 7F, prompting Brian to fly to Ash so he could check on his team. The ground station's mainframe had been infiltrated by strange plant-like life forms, cutting off their communications. When the orbital monitor arrived, Captain AI decided they should leave with him in the next lineup. However, Rhea refused to go, convinced that the planet's advanced technology was the solution to human survival. That evening, the scientist went against protocol and extracted a specimen from the alien vegetation to analyze under a microscope. The captain caught her in the act, but when he saw the organism moving, he pushed her out of harm's way as it escaped from the petri dish. The parasite quickly latched onto Audi and forcefully crawled up his nose, infecting him within seconds and forcing Rhea to defend herself as he attacked her. Clark arrived moments later and restrained the woman while Kevin checked on their fallen crew member. Suddenly, the seemingly lifeless man grabbed him by the throat and eventually pinned him down. While he managed to slice the captain's neck, the parasite simply slivered from its host's mouth and entered his ear, starting another cycle of infection. Having lost all his senses, Kevin began throwing his girlfriend around like a rag doll, slamming her head against the metal walls while Rhea writhed on the floor from the overwhelming pain. Her boyfriend stood over her, his mouth gaping as he prepared to transmit the infection. Clark saved her just in time, but as she helped her up, the male scientist lunged at her and pinned her down. Brian walked in on them, though when Kevin noticed him just standing there, the infected man chased him down the air vents and bashed his head repeatedly with a pipe. Rhea used this chance to replace Clark's broken helmet and instructed her to board the lander and leave for the orbital. After escorting her out of their space station, she grabbed a knife and hid in one of the rooms while her boyfriend waited for her in the hallway. Drawing from Kevin's memories, the alien reassured her that everything would be okay. The woman played along and leaned in for a kiss, though she stabbed him right through the heart as he screamed painfully. The leech left its host and crawled into the gash on her forehead. Rhea tried to resist the infection and swallowed cyanide, intending to end her life in the process. Unbeknownst to her, the parasite helped her body survive the poisoning and continued living inside her until she finally woke up with no recollection of the recent events in the present. The alien appears in her mind as a blinking eye, warning her that the planet is theirs and that they won't let people take it away. Having seen their memories, the otherworldly being mocks humans for their inefficiency and self-destructive nature when it tells her to rejoice as their species has chosen to replicate her. Rhea regains her senses and verbalizes that she doesn't want to be many. The creature now appearing in front of her coaxes her to join them, insisting it's a privilege to become a part of their existence. However, the scientist rebels against the alien's control and removes her patches. She suddenly realizes that her interactions with Brian were merely projections of her infected consciousness. She hurriedly sets up the medbot and programs it to excise the parasite from her body. In the middle of the procedure, Rhea flatlines and her mind goes blank in complete silence, but then she springs back up, gasping for air while all her memories rush back in from life on Earth to working with Kevin and spending time with her crew. Everything returns in a wave. Finally the robot removes the parasite and announces a successful surgery. Still light-headed Rhea gets up and allows herself to recover, unaware that her infected crewmate has just risen. When she hears an odd noise, she quickly turns around and sees Brian standing behind her. The entity enlarges itself and breaks through the man's skull before throwing her to the ground. As the monster strangles her, Rhea grabs a screwdriver and uses it to fend it off. While it struggles to regain balance, she slips into a suit readying to head outdoors. She manages to get a hold of a weapon as it chases her down the hall. As the creature takes time evolving its arm, she desperately searches the lab for a flammable chemical. The alien catches up to her and struggles for control until Rhea fires up the oxygen canister, setting it aflame. When the host's body falls to the ground, she doesn't stop burning it until there are no signs of life. As the whole space station catches fire, the woman watches from afar with relief. She then travels east on foot and boards the lander one last time, ready to leave her dark past behind. After setting it on autopilot, Rhea anxiously maneuvers the aircraft, tightly holding her breath until she flies past Ash's fiery atmosphere and enters outer space. Eventually she finds herself staring at the orbital's bright light, bringing with her all the good memories of the 7F crew.